How Agile has helped me price web projects. One of the benefits of moving to an Agile approach for me has been the confidence it's given me with pricing projects. That might sound paradoxical, as Agile is about letting the process determine the costs rather than fixing them up front. But I don't think this means we need to be suspiciously vague or evasive when asked how much. We're not touting a spurious sales formula, but a model which has altered budget spending in banks, governments, and the largest companies in the world. Being able to offer an Agile approach should give us an advantage, as it's all about delivering value to the customer. That said, it can be wrongly applied, and I think it is easily lost in translation. Before I go on, let me thank our sponsor, Beaver Builder. They are the WordPress page builder I've been running my business with since 2014. And from Beavers Who Build to Elephants in the Room. A week before the Simple Revolutions blog went live, it had a different domain, it had a different main message and some other posts. It was orange, had different icons and a serif font. After building countless sites since 2006, you would think I would be able to stick to a plan. But I think that's the nature of the creative process. The more important a project becomes, the faster ideas evolve and the more sensitive we become to outside influences. For clients, I think this can be even more problematic. They are not expecting this and commit to plans with far less knowledge than us. If they become similarly invested, which seems to happen when a designer has something to show, they can find themselves cornered by their own initial intentions. A form of cognitive dissonance can occur, which, if not easily reconciled, can create problems for a project. I used to read the Clients from Hell blog, and clearly some clients must have found themselves conflicted with earlier ideas they had. A little bit similar to how end of the world predictors become even more adamant they were right after their date has passed. Psychology is really one of the reasons, as it's people focused, that the Agile approach appeals to me. I see it as a way of not getting caught in the crossfire of a client's conflict with themselves. Of course, it would be much easier if clients remained with the same level of personal detachment as when a project begins, but unless they agree to entirely leave it with us, it's probably not realistic. And on the plus side, the more invested they become, the more likely it is that they will explore further what the medium has to offer, and that can translate into more work. I do believe the customer is always right. The chances are a client will initially have no good reason to expect anything other than a fixed cost proposal. And I believe this is where the Agile designer could blow it with good intentions that the client is not in a position to appreciate yet. And I think the solution is often simple. We just give them what they want, plus the ability to be able to change their mind without losing face. And for freelancers and small agencies, this should be relatively easy. Most of us can predict the time it will take to fulfill a build without the client. Payment for sprints of work to a client are the same as scheduled payments in a fixed cost project, and Scrum-like teamwork for us will still often be periods of just getting on with it alone, and I'll talk more about this topic in later posts. Essentially, I see an Agile approach as being there to give clients flexibility and a way of being able to be more closely involved. If they want to forego that for the certainty of a fixed cost, then that's understandable. But logic will dictate that they will then need to follow our processes. If they want to respond, or us to respond to creative changes and work together, then they have to accept that they are now in charge of the budget. And all we can do is offer our experience to help give them some approximations on how long things will take. One I found so far with moving to Agile, and it's as we should expect, is that jobs that remain fairly similar to the original plan have come in for less than they would have done if we'd have given an upfront fixed cost price. And that just makes sense. It incentivizes focus, which cuts down on chasing, stopping and starting, written communication. Plus, the client's time is used for doing rather than undoing what's been done. Either ways, I think we can remove the friction that can occur when clients become contracted to ideas that they had when they were less knowledgeable. I like to kind of signal my intentions very early on with clients. Selling websites as commodities once was a good part of my work. And although it was often still very personal to them, most were seeing the websites as tokenistic appendages to their business. Build it and they will come was the prevalent view at the time. This work has been drying up since the emergence of code-free page builders and ready-made templates. Clients still come asking for a website, often requiring functionality they're not sure how to achieve. But what has become easier over time is getting to what they really want, which is usually a strategy to get more business efficiently online. And that's either because they've now, over the time, had a glimpse into how digital marketing works, or they have built it before and they did not come, or they did come and got confused and distracted and left. These are the clients I feel I can help the most through a longer term relationship. And it seems a better deal for both the client and myself, because if they come on my hosting and care, I have a way to stay in business and not get overwhelmed with odd jobs for an increasing number of ex-clients, and then I'll be available as long as they need me. And it becomes not in my interest to want to spend their entire budget on a big launch. I will be incentivized to help them to spend according to actual results over a longer period of time. Obviously, at the start of a relationship, I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to lock anybody in for my sake as much as theirs. I simply want to offer a service that seems appropriate to the changing nature of the medium that I'm working with. As websites are never really done, and one of the biggest gripes with clients is that the designers are not available when they need them, it makes sense to build trust relationships and useful allies early on. So far, since explaining this, everyone has paid a year's hosting and care before I've built anything. The proposition itself has just made sense to them. The only exceptions to that have been a couple who were effectively secretly trying to cheat on their existing designers. They thought they might get someone else a bit cheaper to do the job that they want and keep that quiet. So I've picked them out early on. But otherwise, everybody's jumped on board. Let me finish off by talking about how I kind of create my impression. I don't have a set onboarding as yet anyway. It's very loose and it's led by my intuition. And these days I don't take on many new clients, but I thought I'd give you a flavor of my approach. So the first contact I have with a client is usually through a face-to-face online chat. There's a booking system on our site, and I don't seek any information on budgets because either they won't know or they won't want to show their cards yet, and I'm interested in the lifetime value of the client, where they'll be just thinking of the one-off project at this point. Most will have shared an existing site that they've got an example of something that they want to build, and that's usually where the conversation starts. So I'm looking at that to see if it can be done with my trusted tools. I'm happy to refer work on that I think might be too difficult for me technically, or that might be problematic to maintain in the long run, because business growth for me has come through the hosting and care, and I want to keep that as passive as possible, using the trusted tools that I use that allow that to happen. After this, then there's usually a bit more free time to talk about them, what the site's going to mean to them and their business, how hands-on they want to be during the build and afterwards, before we get to the how much question. And generally, I will be quick with an estimate based on likely sprints of work. And then I will go on to explain how my business offers these kind of two routes and why. If I discover that more leads is the key thing to them, which it often is, I will often talk about getting me in first just to do some keyword research, because this is, well, it's a low risk way of them getting to know me a little bit more, and knowing the keywords which we can realistically compete for will give us some real clues about the layout and the content and how the project's going to go forward on that. And also, I generally say with this, because when I do keyword research, I'm not always sure to be able to find anything useful. So I say I will refund them if there's nothing of use there. But I think that kind of helps with the whole thing. I have started to mention that we could start with a landing page rather than the full thing. So potentially, as with the Agile approach, you try and get something out earlier and get some kind of return in. And that implies that I would it's not working out for us, they can refund what hasn't been used up in their money. But really, I've never gone anywhere like that. I never talk about Agile or Scrum to them. A simple account of how I try to make my business fairer has been enough. If it's not obvious, I do check as well that I'm talking to a decision maker there. If not, I explain that I work with one person, which in my own mind and in Scrum terms, they become the product manager. And in terms of my business, they become the account holder where they pay and my client. If it's likely that they are going to want me to attend meetings with other stakeholders, I would generally suggest that you do that as a separate payment, so I don't have to estimate how many meetings that might be, and they can control the cost there. Sometimes they will throw in something which I'll need to think about, usually on the some more technical side of things. In those cases, I will say, let me think about this, because I don't want to rush in with decisions, and then I will send them a video screencast of the options and what I think might work best for them, and check then if I understand them correctly. And this is really the closest I get to offering a proposal. But generally, I just send them a link to pay for the hosting and care and book the first full sprints as if we're putting up a basic minimum site there. And generally, they book on the same day. I think many of the clients that I will work with and still work with will in practice be following more of a traditional route where I will get on with it. But I feel Agile thinking has been really useful in allowing me to put myself in the shoes of clients and set expectations and really head off some future problems. Anyway, I hope that was useful. Thanks if you stuck to the end, and please give me a like if this is content you do like, and share it if you feel it might be useful to others. And I hope to see you in another video. Thank you. Bye-bye.